welcome back to our channel on this beautiful day. We are thrilled to have you with us as we dive into the latest, heart-stopping developments in Genoa City. The drama never sleeps, and today we have a truly explosive update that will leave you on the edge of your seat. The Newman family is facing a crisis unlike any other, and the stakes have never been higher. The relentless pursuit of power and vengeance has always been the lifeblood of the Newman family. But the collateral damage of these endless wars is finally taking a catastrophic toll on the family's beloved matriarch. Victoria Newman, ever the observant and calculating daughter, has recently found herself stepping away from the corporate spreadsheets to investigate a much more personal and terrifying mystery. For weeks, she has watched her mother, Nikki Newman, suffer through agonizing, blinding headaches that seem to drain the very life force from her. While Nikki has stubbornly brushed off these debilitating episodes as mere flare-ups of her long-standing battle with multiple sclerosis, Victoria's sharp intuition has led her down a much darker path of discovery. Through careful observation and piecing together the timeline of her mother's physical decline, Victoria has uncovered a direct, undeniable correlation between Nikki's failing health and the suffocating psychological pressure inflicted by Victor Newman's recent ruthless machinations. Victoria's investigation into her mother's condition has revealed a heartbreaking truth about the toxic nature of her parents' legendary romance. She has realized that Victor's unyielding obsession with destroying his enemies is slowly destroying his wife. The sheer magnitude of stress radiating from Victor's recent actions has created an unbearable environment for Nikki. Between the horrifying return of the monstrous Matt Clark and Victor's relentless, unbending crusade to reclaim Newman Enterprises from Phyllis Summers at any cost, the Newman household has become a pressure cooker of anxiety and dread. Victoria has watched in silent horror as her father's aggressive tactics, his manipulation of artificial intelligence to frame his rivals, and his absolute refusal to compromise have placed an insurmountable emotional burden on Nikki's shoulders. The matriarch has been forced to navigate the treacherous waters of her husband's vindictive schemes while desperately trying to hold her fractured family together. And Victoria now sees that this invisible weight is manifesting in a terrifying physical breakdown. The realization that her father is the true architect of her mother's suffering has ignited a fierce, protective fire within Victoria. She understands that Victor's blind ambition and his need to conquer every perceived threat have blinded him to the fragility of the woman he claims to love above all else. Victoria knows that if someone does not intervene, Victor's actions will push Nikki past the point of no return. The corporate victories and the destruction of their enemies will mean absolutely nothing if the cost of that victory is Nikki's life. Armed with this devastating knowledge, Victoria has attempted to reason with her mother, begging her to step away from the chaos and seek immediate, comprehensive medical attention. She has pleaded with Nikki to recognize that these headaches are not a standard symptom of her multiple sclerosis, but rather a violent physical reaction to the toxic environment Victor has cultivated. Despite Victoria's desperate and impassioned pleas, Nikki's legendary stubbornness has proven to be an impenetrable fortress. For decades, Nikki has defined herself by her resilience, her ability to stand tall beside the most powerful man in Genoa City, and her refusal to show weakness to the outside world. She has weathered storms of infidelity, addiction, and corporate espionage, always emerging with her head held high. Admitting that her body is failing her, and worse, admitting that her husband's actions are the catalyst for that failure, is a reality Nikki is simply unwilling to face. She has continuously dismissed Victoria's concerns, insisting that she just needs to push through the pain and focus on presenting a united front for Newman Enterprises. Nikki's determination to maintain the facade of the untouchable, invulnerable Newman matriarch has blinded her to the very real, ticking time bomb inside her own head. This tragic denial sets the stage for a horrifying climax at a highly publicized, critical public event for Newman Enterprises. The gala is designed to project absolute strength, stability, and dominance to the corporate world. A glittering showcase of the Newman family's unwavering power amidst the chaotic rumors of hostile takeovers and legal battles. The ballroom is packed with the elite of Genoa City, the flashing lights of the press cameras illuminating the opulent surroundings. Nikki, draped in elegance, arrives with a forced smile that masks an excruciating, blinding agony radiating through her skull. Victoria watches her mother with a knot of pure dread tightening in her stomach, her eyes tracking Nikki's every movement. Noting the slight tremors in her hands and the unnatural pallor of her skin beneath the immaculate makeup. The atmosphere is electric with anticipation, but for Victoria, it is suffocating with impending doom. As the event reaches its pinnacle, Nikki is called to the podium to deliver a keynote address, a speech intended to solidify the family's legacy and reassure their investors. She steps up to the microphone, the bright spotlights bearing down on her, magnifying the intense pressure of the moment. For the first few minutes, Nikki relies on her decades of media training, her voice projecting the confidence and grace expected of her. But as she speaks, the invisible monster inside her head unleashes a wave of pain so profound that it shatters her carefully constructed facade. The audience watches in growing confusion as Nikki's words begin to slur, her sentences trailing off into disoriented silence. She grips the edges of the podium, her knuckles turning white, as the grand ballroom begins to spin violently around her. In a moment that will forever be etched into the minds of everyone present, the invincible Nikki Newman loses her battle against the unseen terror ravaging her body. Her eyes roll back, her grip on the podium fails, and she collapses to the polished floor with a sickening thud. A collective gasp of sheer horror ripples through the crowd, the elegant silence of the gala shattered by panicked murmurs and the frantic clicking of camera shutters capturing the matriarch's fall. Victoria, whose worst fears have just materialized before her eyes, lets out a visceral cry and sprints across the stage. She drops to her knees beside her mother's motionless body, her hands trembling as she desperately searches for a pulse, screaming for someone to call an ambulance. The glittering facade of Newman Enterprises vanishes in an instant, replaced by the raw, terrifying reality of a family facing the potential loss of its heart and soul. The transition from the opulent ballroom to the chaotic, sterile environment of the emergency room is a blur of flashing sirens and suffocating terror for Victoria. As the paramedics rush Nikki through the hospital doors on a stretcher, shouting medical jargon and fighting to stabilize her, Victoria is left standing in the harsh, fluorescent light of the waiting area, her hands stained with the metaphorical blood of her father's ambition. The agonizing wait stretches into eternity. Every second that ticks by is a torment, a silent condemnation of the family's toxic priorities. Victoria paces the floor, her mind racing with a chaotic mixture of profound grief and boiling, unadulterated rage. She knows that when Victor arrives, she will have to confront the man who built an empire but failed to protect his queen. The man whose relentless psychological warfare has culminated in this devastating physical collapse. When the team of specialists finally emerges to deliver their preliminary findings, the news shatters whatever fragile hope Victoria had managed to cling to. The doctors, their faces grim and professional, reveal that the situation is infinitely more dire than anyone had anticipated. They explicitly confirm Victoria's darkest suspicions. The catastrophic collapse and the weeks of agonizing pain are not, in any way, related to a standard relapse of Nikki's multiple sclerosis. Instead, the extensive emergency scans and neurological tests have uncovered a severe, life-threatening neurological crisis that has been silently developing in the shadows. The diagnosis points to a highly complex and incredibly dangerous abnormality in Nikki's brain, a condition that has been drastically exacerbated by the extreme, prolonged periods of severe psychological stress she has endured. The medical team meticulously explains that this new, terrifying neurological condition requires immediate, highly specialized, and incredibly invasive medical intervention. The path forward is fraught with unimaginable risks, and the doctors offer no guarantees of a full recovery or even of survival. Victoria listens to the clinical breakdown of her mother's failing brain, the words washing over her like icy water. The realization that Nikki is hovering on the very precipice of death, all while Victor was busy orchestrating corporate espionage and playing dangerous games with psychopaths like Matt Clark, is a truth too heavy to bear. Victoria is now faced with the monumental task of not only making life or death medical decisions for her mother, but also holding her father accountable for the toxic environment that pushed Nikki to the breaking point. Watching these tragic events unfold evokes a profound sense of sorrow and empathy that is difficult to articulate. There is something deeply unsettling and profoundly human about witnessing a woman of Nikki Newman's stature, a woman who has survived decades of unimaginable trials, be brought to her knees not by a physical enemy, but by the invisible, suffocating weight of the life she has chosen. It forces us to reflect on the true cost of power and the devastating toll that relentless ambition can take on the human spirit. The Newman family has always operated under the illusion that their wealth and influence could shield them from the ultimate vulnerabilities of mortality. But this heartbreaking crisis shatters that illusion completely. It is a stark, poignant reminder that behind the designer clothes, the corporate takeovers, and the endless scheming, there are fragile human hearts that can only endure so much pain before they simply stop beating. The tragedy lies in the realization that the love Victor has for Nikki, while undeniably deep, is also the very force that is tearing her apart. As Nikki lies in a sterile hospital bed, her life hanging by the thinnest of threads, the entire landscape of Genoa City is poised for a seismic shift. When Victor Newman finally learns the true extent of his wife's condition and the undeniable role his actions played in her collapse, how will the great patriarch react? Will this devastating wake-up call force him to abandon his ruthless vendettas and focus on the only thing that truly matters, or will the guilt and grief drive him to even darker, more destructive extremes? Victoria is now armed with the truth, and a confrontation with her father seems inevitable, threatening to tear the Newman family apart from the inside out. The battle for Newman Enterprises pales in comparison to the battle for Nikki's life, and you will not want to miss a single second of the emotional fallout that is about to rock this family to its very core. Stay tuned, because the true test of the Newman legacy is only just beginning.